It's delicious. The broth is nice. We're getting ready to make the most amazing stew. This is a spicy potato chickpea stew, and it is amazingly delicious. I'm gonna go over the ingredients real quick, and that's another thing. It's quick and easy. It is not a stew that needs to be cooked all day long, but it's comforting just as much as if you did. So we have some potatoes here. We have a part of a red onion, and I'll explain that as well. I have some red bell pepper pieces here. I'll explain those as well. We have jalapeno, garlic. We have some diced tomatoes, our garbanzo beans, which are chickpeas. We have my Pam's Prep all-purpose seasoning, a little cumin, turmeric, and some chicken broth. Now, you can use vegetable broth if you want. First thing I'm going to do is bring you all up closer, and so we can prep everything, and I'm going to go and rinse and drain and rinse my chickpeas. So the first thing, make sure your potatoes are washed and peeled. Then we'll set those aside. So the recipe actually calls for a small red onion, but I had this in my refrigerator, so that's what I am actually just going to use to chop up. And the same thing for my and rough chops. Nothing fancy. It doesn't have to be perfect or anything like that, and you don't want the cuts too small. You want to have some texture in your stew. So just do rough chops on everything. The red bell pepper and the jalapeno peppers came from my garden. Now, when it comes to the jalapeno peppers, you can use one or two. I am actually using one of my larger ones as well as one of my smaller ones because the ones that have come from my garden are extremely hot. And so therefore, that will do just fine. So we are going to set that aside. I'm going to do the garlic last. It needs to be minced. Let's go ahead and get our red bell peppers chopped up. Again, not too small. You don't want huge chunks in there, but you do want to have a little texture. This red bell pepper, I actually preserved from my garden, and it has been frozen. That's why it looks kind of wrinkly or whatever. That's because I just took it out of my freezer. So you need a whole red bell pepper, and that's what this was. Bell peppers freeze really well. They just aren't really good for raw dishes once they have been frozen. That ice out of there. Now with my jalapenos, I always suggest this. I need to separate that. There we go. I always suggest that you remove the seeds and membrane because otherwise they may end up being a little bit too hot and spicy for you. Remember to wash your hands and not necessarily touch your face or anything while you're dealing with any kind of hot peppers. And for me, it's okay if a seed or two is left in there because, well, I like the heat. And again, if you noticed, there's ice in the middle of this because these are peppers from my garden that I have preserved. Just put them in the freezer. And again, these still make good poppers though. Even though they be frozen, you imagine that they wouldn't, but they still make good poppers. We are going to dice up our potatoes. And again, you don't want them too small, but you want them in some nice sized chunks. like to cut mine up into that size. Okay, and last but not least, we have our cloves of garlic. I am using 3 larger cloves of garlic. And you want to chop these pretty fine as well. Okay, all of our prep work is done. We're going to now take our entire cutting board and head to the stove. So the first thing we want to do is put just a tad bit of our chicken broth into our stock pot. Start off with a small amount. You can always add more. Then add in your onions. And your garlic. You want to saute this just until they start to soften. After 2 or 3 minutes and your onions and garlic has started to soften, add in your jalapenos and continue to saute until they softened. Okay, once your jalapenos soften, it's time to add in our seasonings. And we're adding everything in one by one and letting it saute each on its own, is because that's how you develop your depth of flavor. You want everything to come to a certain point, release its oils and things like that, so that that flavor can come out. So now I'm going to go in just with a little bit of Himalayan salt. I always like to add salt when I'm cooking stews and things. It just helps bring out the flavor. I'm putting in some cumin. This is turmeric. Anytime you use turmeric, it's a good thing to use some black pepper, so I'm putting in some cracked black pepper. Brings out that medicinal properties in it. And I am using some of my Pam's Prep all-purpose seasoning. Make sure you stir that really, really well and add in another spoonful of chicken broth if you need to, so that it won't stick. And give that a good stir and mix all those seasonings together. Now we're going to put in our red bell peppers. Stir those in. This is smelling amazing. Let those cook with everything else just for about a minute. Now we're going to add in our tomatoes and the liquid from the can. Giving it a stir. Our rinsed and drained chickpeas. And our potatoes. Give everything a stir again. We're getting ready to put in our broth, but before you do that, find a little bit of the liquid and give it a taste. Oh, that's good. You want to make sure you have enough of your individual seasonings, like my Pam's Prep seasoning, the cumin, the turmeric, and even the little salt. Once you have that going, go ahead and add in your broth. And I will have, of course, all the ingredients will be down in the description. Give it a stir. We're going to turn this up and bring it to a boil. And I'm adding in 2 bay leaves. Okay? We'll fish those out in the end. All right, we're going to let this come up to a boil. Then we're going to cover, reduce to simmer until the potatoes are done. Once you're at a rolling boil like this, go ahead and turn your pot down to low, and so it can simmer. Because I have an electric stove, I'm going to leave the top off just for a couple of seconds. It will slow down the process much quicker. Then I'm going to put the top on, and we're going to simmer it until our potatoes are done. Then after that, we have one more thing we need to do before we can complete our stew and it's ready to eat. So I'll be back. Okay, we are just about done. I've taken it off the eye. I was actually cooking it on just for a moment. I am going to take a couple of ladles. First, I'm going to fish out the bay leaves because I want to make sure I don't incorporate those in what I'm getting ready to do. You will either need, let me toss these out. Okay, we got rid of our bay leaves. You will either need an immersion blender, which is this right here, or a potato masher. I'm going to use my immersion blender just because it's a little quick and easy. You want to take a couple of ladles full of your stew and put it into another container. Make sure you get some of the liquid. And we're going to blend this. Now, you can put more if you want in there to blend it. This is going to thicken up our stew. We're going to continue to cook it some after this, but this is going to help thicken our stew. Move that up there just so you guys can see. This part of my stove is not on, so we'll work right here for now. Okay. You do not have to puree it. You do not have to puree it or mash it until it's completely liquefied. This is just going to help us thicken our stew. And you can do this when you're cooking any stew or any soups or something like that. And as you can see, this is nice and thick now. So what we're going to do from here is pour it back in here and sit it back on the eye and let it continue to simmer for a while. Now, if you want, you could just not do this at all and it will still be amazingly delicious. It will be more of a soup than a stew. And then just stir it up. And the more you puree and put back in here, the thicker it will be. So I'm gonna let you guys see how thick this is getting. I'm gonna just let it continue to simmer here for a while. Our potatoes are not quite done, so we're gonna let them simmer and it will continue to thicken up from here. So we'll be back. Okay, we are all done. Doesn't this look amazing? Oh my goodness. So I'm just gonna ladle some in this cup right here. Along with some of the broth. This is amazing. It smells so good. Okay, so, ooh, look at that, look at that. Oh my goodness. Ooh, a cup of hot stew. Oh my goodness. Doesn't this look amazing? Ooh, put a little bit more in here. This is delicious. Oh my goodness. Woo, time for us to do a taste test. If you are new to the channel, welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for coming and hanging out with me today in my kitchen. I really do appreciate each and every one of you all. Oh my goodness, this smells amazing. For my returning subscribers, thank you so much. And channel members, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Ooh, and if you're not a member, check out Pam's Private Pantry. Okay, let's give this a taste. I'm gonna really just taste the broth here. Look at that. Ooh, half a bite, half a bite. Look at that. Nice and chunky. Oh my goodness. Yes. I'm excited. I love, 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 love chickpeas. Ooh, wee, this is hot. Y'all know this is hot. Ooh. Ooh, it's hot. But we gotta do a taste test. Oh my goodness. Ooh. It's delicious. The broth is nice and spicy. And I tossed a few red pepper flakes in there in the end, y'all. Because the jalapenos wasn't as spicy as I wanted it to be. Ooh, okay. Ooh, that is amazingly delicious. I'm gonna go finish that. Oh, you can throw in some cornbread with it too. That would be awesome and amazing. But I'm just not having any breads and cornbreads right now for myself. I just want this nice cup of soup and a movie, and I'm good. All right, I will see you all next time. The good Lord willing and the creek don't rise. Bye-bye.